Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're gonna take a deep dive into something I think a lot of dog owners struggle with.
Yeah,
And it's figuring out how much to feed our dogs.
definitely.
They can be super
I
confusing.
really can.
We've got this awesome article from Pet MD today all about dog feeding charts.
Absolutely.
And I'm already kind of fascinated just looking at it and seeing that a dog's needs can actually change by up to 50% more or less
Right.
than the average.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah. That's a huge swing. So I think sometimes we just sort of
Eyeball it
eyeball it
and
and hope
find
for the
consent
best.
with it.
And that might not be the best strategy.
Not really. No.
So we're going to get into all of that today.
Absolutely.
I think maybe the best place to start is right with that dog food label.
Yes, I agree.
Because I think a lot of times we kind of just,
Glance at it,
glance at it. We're like, okay, looks good to me.
pretty pictures, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's so much information on that label that's really valuable.
So what are some of the things we should be paying attention to that maybe we're not?
Well, the feeding chart on that label is tailored to that specific food. So it takes into account the calorie density of the food, the nutrients and all that good stuff. And it's based on your dog's weight. So it's really, really important. It's kind of like their own little personal profile.
Okay, so it's not like all kibble is created equal, is what you're saying.
Absolutely
Oh,
not.
just
You've got
got it.
different calorie counts, different. So just as an example, the Purina Pro Plan feeding chart in the article, their dry food has 379 calories per cup. Now, you think about like a tiny little Chihuahua, that dog might only need like a half a cup a day,
Oh, wow.
but a Great Dane could be scarfing down over 4 cups.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Huge. So you can't just, look at those portions and just kind of guesstimate.
No, it's like a snack versus like a whole meal.
Totally.
So we really do need to be paying attention to that.
We do. And that's just based on their weight. There's a lot of other factors that come into play with how much you should be feeding your dog.
What? What are some of the other things?
So things like their age, their
Mm.
activity level, reproductive status, meaning if they're spayed or neutered or not, their body condition score, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
All those things kind of play a role in, how much food they need each day.
So it's almost like a puzzle. And these are all like the pieces.
Exactly, yeah. So age is a big one. I mean, puppies are like little bundles of energy, right? They're growing like crazy.
Right.
So they need a lot more calories and nutrients than adult dogs just to support that rapid growth.
I have a friend with a puppy right now, and it's insane how much that dog eats.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, it's like it's training for a marathon or something.
Yeah.
Constantly eating. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have senior dogs
Right.
who maybe aren't as active and might not need as many calories.
Right. They're kind of slowed down a little bit. So,
Yeah.
it's really important to kind of, adjust their diet as they age.
Right. Yeah, like almost like they're pacing themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Like a marathon runner instead of a sprinter. Right.
Like that analogy.
So it's not just about, how much they weigh,
Right.
but also, where they are in their life.
What about that spayed or neutered?
Okay. So when a dog is spayed or neutered, their metabolism actually tends to slow down a bit. So they might not need quite as many calories as a dog that's, intact.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're almost like their internal engine is running a little bit cooler.
Right, exactly. So you might need to kind of adjust their calories accordingly.
Okay, so we've got age, we've got activity level, we've got that spayed or neutered factor. What else?
Oh, body condition score.
Okay.
So this is a way to actually assess your dog's physique and see if they're at a healthy weight.
So it's not just about stepping on the scale.
No, it's more about actually looking at them, feeling them, and kind of getting a sense of if they're carrying a little extra weight or if they're too thin.
How do you do that? Like, how do I know if my dog's overweight?
Well, the easiest way is actually to feel their ribs.
Oh, okay.
So you should be able to feel their ribs fairly easily without pressing too hard. If you have to like dig around to find them, they might be carrying a little extra padding.
It's like a built-in body fat analyzer.
Basically. And there's a chart in the article that kind of goes into more detail about how to assess your dog's body condition score. But yeah, feeling their ribs is a good starting point.
I like that tip.
And remember, every dog is different, right? So what might be a healthy weight for one breed
Right.
might be different for another.
Okay, this is making much more sense now.
Right.
I feel like I'm learning the language of dog food.
Yes, you are.
Let's talk about those puppies.
Yes. The bundles of energy.
Because the article, they use this example of this blue buffalo wilderness puppy food.
Okay.
And it's crazy how much they're supposed to eat, like in those early months.
It's a lot of food.
It's a lot of food.
Like on the chart, for example, it says a puppy between 1 and 3 months old If they weigh between 11 and 20 pounds, they might need anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 cups of food per day.
Huh.
And that, of course, changes as they get bigger.
Right. They're like growing so quickly and their needs are changing.
Right.
It's amazing how their appetite kind of evolves as
Isolus.
they grow.
Mm-hmm.
What about when they get to be, senior dogs?
Senior dogs. Okay, so senior dogs are a little tricky because the article says they often need fewer calories.
Okay.
But it really does depend. Some senior dogs actually need more depending on their overall health.
So probably a good idea to be talking to our vet more.
Absolutely, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about the calories either. Senior dog foods are often formulated with specific ingredients to help support things like their joints and their cognitive function.
Yeah.
So it's really about kind of tailoring the diet to their needs.
So the example they use is the Wellness Complete Health senior dog food. How does that compare, say, to that adult Purina Pro plan that we were talking about earlier?
Okay, so for a dog, say, that weighs between 18 and 23 pounds, the Wellness Senior Food suggests you feed them between 1 and 1.33 cups per day. And if you look at the adult Purina Pro plan chart, which recommends like 1.25 to 1 and 23 cups for that same weight range, you see that the senior food is suggesting, generally a little bit less in terms of calories.
So there's a subtle shift as they get older.
There is, yeah, just like their activity level kind of shifts.
Yeah. Oh, this is making a lot of sense.
Good, good. So you're starting to get, we've got the label down.
Yeah.
We've got the basic factors down.
We're like dog food detectives now.
Exactly. But there's another piece of the puzzle that we haven't talked about yet.
Lay it on me.
Okay, so we know how much to feed.
Wow.
We need to talk about how often.
Oh, okay.
Because meal frequency is actually a really important factor, especially when you're talking about puppies.
So it's not just about the total amount.
It's not just about the total. It's about how you spread it out.
Yeah.
And that can make a big difference for their digestion, their energy levels.
Yeah.
It can even prevent them from begging for food all day long, which, we all know can be a little
Heartbreaking.
heartbreaking, yes. So the article has some really good recommendations for that. For example, for large and giant breed puppies that are up to 4 months old, they suggest 3 meals per day. Then as they become adults and seniors, they can go down to, 2 or 3 meals per day.
So the bigger the puppy, the more frequent the meals.
Exactly. What about small and medium breeds? They have a similar kind of pattern. Puppies up to 4 months old, 3 meals a day. Adults and seniors, 2 meals per day generally works well.
Okay, so
Toy breeds, that's where it gets really interesting.
here we go.
Toy breed puppies.
Those tiny little guys.
Tiny little guys up to 4 months old need 4 to 5 meals per day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they have tiny little tummies, but those metabolisms are working overtime. So they need those small, frequent meals to keep their energy up.
It's like they're constantly refueling.
Yes. And then as they get a little older, like 4 to 6 months old, you can drop it down to 3 meals a day. And then from 6 months on, 2 meals a day, just like the other adult dogs.
So it really does matter, this meal frequency, especially for those puppies.
It really does. It really does.
I mean, we're almost like creating a little feeding schedule, customized for their size and their age and their needs.
Precisely. And, it's not just about, keeping them from begging. It's also about, helping with their digestion, preventing those blood sugar spikes and crashes.
Yeah. This is all making so much more sense.
That's good.
But why? Why does all of this matter so much? Like, why are we getting so granular with this? What's the big picture here?
Okay, that's a great question. I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is to feed their dog correctly.
Yeah.
It can actually have a huge impact on their health.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like the article says that almost 60% of dogs are overweight or obese.
Wow. Had no idea it was that high.
It's a big problem.
Yeah.
And it can lead to all sorts of health issues like joint problems, heart disease, even a shorter lifespan. And I think a lot of it comes down to, not understanding these feeding guidelines and not really paying attention to what we're feeding our dogs.
It's true. And sometimes it's so hard to say no.
I know.
When they give you those puppy dog eyes, you're just like, fine, have another treat.
I know. But it's really important to resist those urges and, stick to a healthy feeding plan.
So, we've talked about how much to feed, how often to feed.
Right.
Are there other things that we should be thinking about when it comes to their diet?
Absolutely.
Oh.
We've just scratched the surface here. I mean, now that we know how much to feed and how often, we need to talk about what to feed.
Oh.
Because the quality of the food matters just as much as the quantity.
So it's almost like we're leveling up now.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going from dog food 101 to like dog food gourmet.
I love that. Okay, so how do we become dog food connoisseurs? What's the secret?
Well, it all comes down to the ingredients,
Yep.
right? Just like humans, dogs thrive on a balanced and nutritious diet.
That makes sense.
So you want to be looking for foods that are made with high-quality ingredients, and you want to avoid foods that are full of fillers and artificial ingredients.
Okay, so just like when I'm shopping for myself, I'm looking at the label.
Exactly. Think of it as reading a nutrition label, but for your dog.
I love that.
And you want to pay attention to the ingredient list,
Yeah.
and you want to pay attention to the guaranteed analysis.
So, like, I should be looking for those hidden sugars.
Yes. And artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, all that stuff.
Like the things that I try to avoid for myself.
Exactly, yeah. You want to treat your dog's food the same way you treat your own food. So, for example, you want to look for foods that have real meat listed as the first few ingredients. Things like chicken, beef, fish, lamb. And you want to avoid foods that start with, like, byproducts or meat meal, because that's kind of like the mystery meat of the dog food world.
Oh, that's a good analogy. It's like choosing a steak versus a hot dog.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, I get it. What about those ingredients that are like so long?
Yes.
I can't even pronounce
I
them.
know, right?
Are those automatic red flags?
Not necessarily. I mean, some of those are just, scientific names for vitamins and minerals. But if the ingredient list looks like, a chemistry experiment, that's when you want to be a little bit cautious.
Got it. Real recognizable ingredients.
Yeah.
Good. A whole bunch of chemicals. Probably not so good.
Right, exactly.
What about that guaranteed analysis thing you mentioned?
Oh, yeah. So the guaranteed analysis is really important. It tells you the minimum percentages of protein, fat, fiber, and moisture in the food. It's like a nutritional snapshot. So, for example, if you have a really active dog and you need a food that's higher in protein,
Right.
you'd want to look at the guaranteed analysis to see what the percentage of protein is.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
But it's important to remember that those are just minimums. So the actual nutrient content can vary a bit depending on the specific ingredients. It's like, looking at the blueprint for a house, you kind of get the general idea, but the finishes and details can change the overall look and feel.
So it's like a starting point.
Yeah, a good starting point.
But it doesn't tell the whole story.
No, it doesn't. You also want to consider the source of the ingredients, how the food was manufactured, any certifications or quality standards that it meets. It's a little more complicated than just grabbing the cheapest bag off the shelf.
I'm starting to understand that. It's like we're investing in their health.
Exactly.
Long
term. And it's worth it because feeding your dog a high-quality diet can actually help prevent health problems, boost their immune system, give them more energy. They might even have a shinier coat, healthier skin, all those good things.
So it's like we're giving them the best possible foundation
Exactly.
for a healthy, happy life.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like that. I never thought about it that way. Like it's an investment.
It is. And speaking of high quality, there's this whole thing now about grain-free.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that.
That's become a really big topic.
It's everywhere. Is grain-free bad?
Well, it's complicated. There's been a lot of back and forth about it. And some research has suggested that it might be linked to heart problems in certain breeds.
No, wow.
But the science is still evolving. And it's important to remember that every dog is different. So what might be a good option for one dog might not be good for another.
So it's almost like we have to do a deep dive ourselves.
You do. You have to do your research. You have to talk to your vet. They can help you sort through all the information.
Yeah, our vets really are like dog food detectives.
They are. Don't be afraid to ask them lots of questions.
Yeah. This is really helpful. I'm starting to feel like a more informed dog food shopper already just from this conversation.
I'm glad. But there's one more thing we need to talk about.
Oh. Okay, what is it?
Sourcing and sustainability.
You mean like where the ingredients come from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how the food is produced.
I've been trying to be more conscious of that in my own life, but I never really thought about it from my dog.
Well, it's becoming increasingly important.
Yeah.
People are starting to pay more attention to where their food comes from and the impacts it has on the planet. And that includes pet food, too.
So, like ethically sourced meat and things like that?
Exactly, yeah. Things like free-range meat, sustainably caught fish, organic produce. It's all about making sure that those ingredients are being produced in a responsible way.
So, not only are we feeding our dogs, but we're also kind of supporting
Oh, wow.
businesses that are doing good.
That's right. You're voting with your dollar.
Okay.
And there are also certifications and labels that you can look for that indicate sustainable practices. For example, some brands might have a certification from the Marine Stewardship Council for Sustainable Seafood, or the Global Animal Partnership for Animal Welfare Standards.
So those little like badges of honor on the bags
Exactly.
show me that they're actually committed to this.
Exactly.
Okay, this is so much to think about.
It is, but it's all really important.
I never realized how much goes into choosing the right dog food.
Well, it's like anything else. The more you know, the better choices you can make.
I'm starting to realize that. So, as we sort of wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I mean, what are some of the key takeaways? What do you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that feeding guidelines are just a starting point.
Okay.
Every dog is an individual,
Right.
and their dietary needs can change throughout their lives. So don't be afraid to adjust those recommendations based on your dog's needs and lifestyle.
So, we're not just blindly following those charts.
Right, you're using them as a foundation.
Yeah.
And then you're fine-tuning it based on your dog's age, their breed, their activity level, any health concerns they might have. And of course, your veterinarian is your best resource.
They're our partner in this.
Exactly. Don't underestimate the power of observation either. Pay attention to your dog's body condition, their energy levels, their coat, their digestion. All those things can tell you a lot about whether or not their current diet is meeting their needs.
So, it's like we're constantly gathering clues
Yes.
to figure out this puzzle.
That's a great way to put it.
I like that. I think sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed by all this information.
It is.
And we strive for this perfect diet, and we're like, oh no, am I doing this wrong?
Right.
What advice would you give to dog owners who are maybe feeling that way?
I think the most important thing is to remember that feeding your dog should be a joyful experience
Oh, yeah.
for both of you.
Sometimes I get so caught up in the details
I know.
that I forget to just enjoy the experience.
Exactly, yeah. So, trust your instincts.
Yeah,
Make informed choices based on what you've learned.
right.
And don't be afraid to ask for help along the way. At the end of the day, it's all about love, connection, and wanting the best for our dogs.
So well said. And I think we've given our listeners a really great foundation to start making those choices.
I hope so.
When we come back, we're going to wrap up this deep dive and we'll give everyone some final thoughts
Okay.
and actionable takeaways
Thanks, Zach.
so they can really put all this knowledge into practice.
Yes, and become dog food superheroes.
Dog food
I
superheroes.
would love it.
We'll be right back after this break.
All right, so we're back, and we're ready to keep going deeper into this dog food world.
Yeah, we're ready to level up our dog food knowledge.
Exactly. We talked about how much to feed, how often to feed, but now what about what we're actually feeding them?
Right, because the quality of the food is just as important as the quantity.
Okay, so where do we even begin? I mean, there's so many brands and formulas out there, it's kind of overwhelming.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
But remember that dog food label we talked about? That's our guide again.
Okay, the label. So it's like reading a nutrition label, but for my dog. Exactly. Pay close attention to that ingredient list and the guaranteed analysis, just like you would for your own food.
Okay, so I'm scanning for those hidden sugars, weird additives, all that stuff.
Exactly. You want to see high-quality protein sources listed as the first few ingredients, things like real chicken, beef, fish, lamb, those kinds of things. You want to avoid foods that start with byproducts or meat meal, because that's kind of like the mystery meat of dog food.
Ew. Yeah, no thanks. Like, I wouldn't eat mystery meat, so why would I give it to my dog?
Exactly. So, think of it like choosing a steak over a hot dog for your dog.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
What about those ingredients with names I can't even pronounce? Are those always bad?
Not always. Some of them are just fancy scientific terms for vitamins and minerals. But if the ingredient list looks like a chemistry experiment with a ton of artificial colors and flavors and preservatives, that's when you want to be a little bit cautious.
So, real, recognizable ingredients. Good.
Yes.
A whole bunch of chemicals. Probably not so good. Okay, what about that guaranteed analysis? What should I be looking for there?
Okay, so the guaranteed analysis tells you the minimum percentages of protein, fat, fiber, and moisture in the food. It's like a little snapshot of the nutrient content. So, for example, if you have a super active dog and you need a food that's higher in protein, you'd look at the guaranteed analysis to see what that percentage is.
So if I'm looking for a high protein food, I'm looking for a higher percentage there.
Exactly. But it's important to keep in mind that those are just minimums. So the actual nutrient content can vary a little bit depending on the specific ingredients used. It's kind of like looking at the blueprint for a house. You get the general idea, but the finishes and the details can really change the overall look, and feel.
So the guaranteed analysis is a good starting point,
Yes.
but it doesn't tell the whole story.
Exactly, right.
Okay, so what else should we be thinking about?
You also want to consider the source of the ingredients, how the food was manufactured, and any certifications or quality standards that it meets.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more complicated than just grabbing the cheapest bag on the shelf.
It's like we're really investing in their health.
Exactly.
Long term, yeah.
By making these choices.
Absolutely. And it's worth it because feeding your dog a high-quality diet can help prevent health problems, boost their immune system, give them more energy. They might even have a shinier coat, healthier skin, all those good things.
Okay, so it's like we're setting them up
Yeah,
for the best possible life.
exactly.
I like that. What about this whole grain-free thing?
Oh, yeah, grain-free.
That's a big buzzword these days.
It is. It is. And there's been a lot of back and forth about it.
Is it bad? Should I be avoiding it?
Well, it's complicated. Some research has suggested that it might be linked to heart problems in certain breeds.
Really?
But the science is still evolving.
And every dog is different, so what might be a good option for one dog might not be good for another.
So talk to our vet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to your vet. Do your research.
It's like we have to do a deep dive ourselves.
That's exactly.
Under the research.
Exactly. Your vet can help you sort through all the information and figure out what's best for your dog.
Our vets really are like dog food detectives.
They are. They have all the expertise.
Okay, so we've talked about quality ingredients, guaranteed analysis, this whole grain-free debate. What else is there?
Well, there's one more layer that we need to talk about.
There's more.
There's one more, yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's sourcing and sustainability.
Like where the ingredients come from.
Exactly, and how the food is produced. People are becoming more aware of the impact their food choices have on the planet, and that includes pet food, too.
Yeah, I've definitely been thinking about that more in my own life.
Right.
But I never really thought about it for my dog's food.
It's becoming more and more important in the pet food industry. So, look for brands that are using ethically sourced ingredients, things like free-range meat, sustainably caught fish, organic produce, that kind of thing. It's all about making sure that those ingredients are being produced in a responsible and humane way.
So not only are we feeding our dogs,
Right.
but we're also supporting businesses that are doing good things for the planet.
Exactly. You're voting with your dollar, basically.
I like that.
And you can look for certifications, too. Some brands might have a certification from, like, the Marine Stewardship Council for Sustainable Seafood or the Global Animal Partnership for Animal Welfare Standards.
So those are good signs.
Those are good signs, yeah. They're like little badges of honor showing that the company is committed to those practices.
I'm starting to realize how much actually goes into choosing the right dog food. It's not as simple as I thought it was.
No, it's not, but it's definitely worth it. You're making a difference for your dog and you're making a difference for the planet.
I love that. So it's like we're all becoming dog food detectives.
We are.
Yeah.
We are, yeah. The more you know, the better choices you can make.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some of the things you want our listeners to really take away from this conversation?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that feeding guidelines are just a starting point.
Okay.
Every dog is an individual.
Right.
And their needs can change throughout their lives. So don't be afraid to adjust those recommendations based on your dog's individual needs and lifestyle.
So we're not just blindly following those charts.
Right. You're using them as a foundation.
Okay.
And then you're fine-tuning it based on your dog's age, their breed, their activity level, any health concerns they might have.
Yeah.
And, of course, talk to your vet.
Our vets are our partners in all of this.
Exactly. They can help you figure out what's best for your dog.
Okay. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all this.
I know.
Like we're striving for this perfect diet and we're like, oh no, am I messing this up?
Right, but don't overthink it.
Ew.
Just remember that feeding your dog should be a joyful experience
Oh, yeah.
for both of you.
Sometimes I get so caught up in the what and the how much that I forget to just enjoy the experience.
Exactly. So trust your instincts, make informed choices based on what you've learned, and don't be afraid to ask for help. At the end of the day, it's all about love and connection and wanting what's best for our dogs.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I'm already making better choices for my dog just from this conversation.
I'm so glad.
So where do we go from here? We've covered so much. What's next on our dog food detective journey?
Well, we've talked about how much to feed, how often to feed, and what to feed. But there's one more piece of the puzzle that we haven't really talked about yet.
Oh, there's more.
There's one more, yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's about making sure that the food we're choosing is not only good for our dogs, but also good for the planet.
Okay, so we're talking about sustainability.
Exactly. And we'll dive into all of that when we come back after the break.
All right, so we're back, and I feel like we've covered so much ground already.
We have. It's been quite the deep dive.
It really has. We've gone from, just grabbing any old bag of kibble off the shelf to actually
Deciphering labels.
yeah, deciphering labels, thinking about, ethically sourced ingredients, sustainable
Like
practices.
the whole 9 yards.
But I think now it's time to sort of bring it all together.
Right, let's synthesize it.
Yeah. What are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember? What can they actually do after listening to this to make good choices for their dogs?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that those feeding guidelines, they're really just a starting point.
Okay.
Because every dog is different.
Right, like we said.
Like a little furry snowflake.
Exactly.
And their dietary needs can change throughout their lives.
Okay.
So don't be afraid to adjust those recommendations based on your dog's, needs and lifestyle.
So we're not just blindly following the charts.
Right. You're using those charts as like a foundation, and then you're fine-tuning it based on your dog's age, their breed, their activity level, any health concerns they might have.
And like we said before, talk to your vet.
Absolutely. Your vet is your best resource.
They're like our partner in this whole thing.
They are.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask them lots of questions,
Okay.
And don't underestimate the power of just observing your dog, too.
Oh, what do you mean?
Pay attention to their body condition, their energy levels, their coat, their digestion. All those things can give you clues about whether their diet is actually working for them.
It's like we're detectives.
We are. We're always gathering evidence.
Yeah. But I think sometimes it's easy to get, overwhelmed by all of this.
It can be a lot.
And we're striving for this perfect diet.
Right.
And then we feel like we're failing if we're not, doing everything perfectly.
Exactly. But you know what? Feeding your dog shouldn't be stressful.
Yeah.
It should be a joyful experience for both of you.
Sometimes I get so caught up in, the what and the how much that I forget to just enjoy mealtime with my dog.
Right. It should be fun.
Yeah.
So, trust your instincts, make informed choices based on what you've learned, and don't be afraid to ask for help along the way.
I love that.
At the end of the day, it's all about love, connection, wanting what's best for our dogs.
So well said. And I think we've really equipped our listeners with the information they need to make those good choices.
I hope so.
We've covered so much, from deciphering those labels to, thinking about sourcing and sustainability.
It's been a journey.
It really has. I feel like we've come a long way.
Me too. It's been fun.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
My pleasure.
This has been an incredible deep dive. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Keep those tails wagging.
And happy feeding, everyone.
We'll see you next time.